Okay, in this section I want to talk about well proofs. Now, because I am a licensed engineer in the state of Utah, I have been called and asked to do some well proofs. I found that I really don't enjoy doing it and would much rather do a home inspection. But I have done a couple, enough to have some background in the subject. Certainly don't want to do a lot more in the future, but one thing I found that I had to do in this county is I had to basically prove a certain amount of flow, and that was usually a 5 gallon per minute flow. The county wanted to know that there was enough water coming out of that well that it could provide for the needs of the family. And many counties, especially the rural ones, consider the following to be the needs of the family. So they're going to assume that you need a certain flow for the indoor use, and they have what they call a term acre feet. An acre foot is an acre of land covered 1 foot high in water. And so if they talk about a certain amount of acre feet, that would be that volume of water per year. And then you're talking about whether it's for outdoor irrigation or whether it's for the family or whether it's for livestock or whatever. But that's what that term is. Another term that you'll sometimes see used is cubic feet per second. And if you imagine a stream and you have, of course, a 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot cube of water flowing past in that stream every second, then that's 1 cubic foot per second. And that's what that means. And then, of course, you got gallons per minute. And I, as the well-proof engineer, I was required to show that they had at least, again, as I say, 5 gallons per minute. Now, that was in this county. I have talked to some other counties that are a little bit more rural, and they don't require any proof of flow. They just want to know, in one case, that, for example, that the water was okay for coliform and E. coli. And what I'm telling you will probably not be the case in your county, because every county does it different. And this is just going to give you some very basic background so at least you know what questions to ask. Some of the counties will actually try to go around using a surveyor or an engineer. They know that us engineers tend to be expensive, and so what they have done is they said, all right, we're going to make it a homework project for you so you don't have to pay the engineer. We're going to make you just prove to us that you need what you're claiming. And so they have allowed homeowners to basically provide an affidavit that says, this is what I'm using. And they can claim up to indoor use. They don't really care if you've got a family of 2 or 12. They're just going to say indoor use. And then they will allow up to a 1/4 acre of exterior use for like a lawn. So if you got a 1/2 acre of lawn you're watering, you can't do this affidavit thing. You've got to use the engineer. But if you have up to a 1/4 acre of lawn that you're watering outside, you can still do the affidavit. And then you can have up to 10 and their ELUs, equivalent livestock units. And this is funny. I kind of got into this. For example, she says that a cow and a horse is livestock. Or I believe it was like 6 or 7 sheep is 1 livestock or 1 ELU. Or you can have ostriches or emus or chickens. I think she said about 33 chickens per ELU. And they've got this big long list of things that could be happening in Utah and that are an equivalent livestock unit. Ostriches, I think she said it was 7. Ostriches are 1 ELU, 1 livestock unit. If you have up to that amount, then you can just provide this affidavit that says this is what I'm using. If you claim all of that, you've got to prove that you're using all of that. So if you're saying you have a cow, a horse, and well, let's get to 10. So let's say you have 4 cows, 4 horses, and we got 2 left. So let's go with maybe 14 emus. So that's 10 equivalent livestock units. If you say you have that, you have to have that on your land on the day that the county drives by, or your affidavit is not going to be proper. It's not a matter of saying this is what I want to have at some point in the future. It is this is what I have now, and then at that point that's what you will be permitted for. After that point, you're not allowed. So let's say that you decide only to have 1 cow, 1 horse, and maybe a dozen chickens. Well, a dozen chickens is less than 1 ELU, so you're going to be permitted for 2 point something ELUs. At that point, that's what you're permitted for, and you don't get to go up to 3 or 4 or 9 because you're permitted for 2.x ELUs, livestock units. And so that's how that game works. You've actually got to have those livestock on your land when the county drives by. If you have more than that, then the affidavit won't work, and you've got to actually have an engineer or a surveyor come out and do that same sort of accounting, and then you got to pay the engineer his fee. It is possible for you to sell a home where they don't have a water right. Maybe they're using a water right, maybe they didn't. Maybe they started down that road of filing for a water right, but if they don't finish the job, they are using that water illegally, and they may or may not even know that they're using that water illegally, but then they go selling you the house, and now your clients are using that water illegally. And you can imagine that that sort of a scenario can land in a phone call from a lawyer to you, and of course nobody needs that scenario. So you want to have this stuff in your toolbox, where if you ask first if there is a private well, and if there is, you want to make sure that there is a water right and that it's been perfected. Sometimes the lender will require that, but maybe we don't want to just rely on the lender to always do what he needs to do either.